Welcome to the March, I think we're 25th meeting of the Commission on Local Government. We have a pretty significant agenda for today, so I'll keep my comments brief. I do want to just remind everyone who's present for the meeting that make sure you're muted as we go through the meeting, unless you are speaking. If you decide that you want to speak, please unmute your mic and state your name for the record. And as a reminder, we are recording the meeting, so this is a recorded meeting. With that, Mr. Conmey, should we have you make a statement about the meeting proceedings, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Cody, if you would please move to the next slide. So due to the governor's declared state of emergency due to COVID-19, it is impracticable and unsafe for the Commission on Local Government to assemble in a single location. So the commission meeting will be held electronically by video conference and telephone options pursuant to 2020 amendments to the 2020 Appropriations Act. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the Commission on Local Government and the discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. The public is welcome to use the link and phone number options made available by staff to attend the meeting electronically. The Commission on Local Government will make available a recording or transcript of the meeting on its website in accordance with the timeframes established in sections 2.2-3707 and 2.2-3701.1 of the Code of Virginia. Furthermore, members of the public attending this meeting who would like to comment on the administration of the electronic meeting may direct your comments to the Virginia FOIA Advisory Council using a linked form that Commission staff can share with you and that I have included in the electronic chat box on the right. For anybody who needs a copy of that link sent to them via email in case you are participating over the phone, please contact Commission staff at the end of this meeting and we would be happy to share that with you.
Thank you, Mr. Comney. Would you please do the roll call vote to determine if there's a quorum?
Yes, Madam Chair. All commissioners, when I call your name, please unmute yourself so I can record your vote as whether or not you are attending. Commissioner Amix?
Present.
Commissioner Davis?
Present.
Commissioner Mahan? I believe Commissioner Mahan had indicated she would not be attending. Commissioner Linderman?
Present.
Madam Chair, you do have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Comney. We can move to part one of our agenda. So our first item of business is the approval of the draft meeting agenda. Before we consider that, are there any amendments or changes to the agenda from the commission or staff?
Madam Chair, this is David Conmey. Yes, I would. Staff would like to add one additional item to the agenda, which is a commending resolution honoring Ali Akbar. This has been sent to the commissioners in advance of the meeting. We were suggesting consideration of that resolution after consideration of Commissioner Reynolds' resolution, but certainly happy to do that anywhere else in the agenda at the will of the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Comney. So there is action on, to amend the agenda to include the resolution after item 6 on the agenda.
I move approval. This is Diane Linderman.
Thank you, Commissioner Linderman. Do I have a second?
Second, Mike Amix.
Thank you, Commissioner Amix. So the motion has been made by Commissioner Linderman and seconded by Commissioner Amix. So we need to unmute ourselves as you call the roll vote, Mr. Comney.
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Amix?
Approve.
Commissioner Davis?
Approve.
Commissioner Mahan, whom we know is not attending. Commissioner Linderman.
Approved.
Okay, the agenda has been amended.
Great. Mr. Comney, for our purposes, do we need a motion to approve the agenda? Or do you think we did that?
Madam Chair, I believe you just did by amending the agenda. That should suffice.
Perfect, thank you. Our next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on January 5th, 2021. Staff did not receive any requests for updates or amendments to that. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on January 5th?
So moved, Mike Amix.
Do I have a second?
Seconded, Diane Linderman.
Excellent. So a motion was made by Commissioner Amix and seconded by Commissioner Linderman. Mr. Comney, do you want to do the roll call, or would you like me to?
I can do the roll call, Madam Chair. Happy to do that. So again, as always, each commissioner, please unmute yourselves when I call your name so we can record your vote. Commissioner Amix.
Aye.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan, again, recorded as not attending, and Commissioner Linderman.
Aye.
Okay, so we have an approval of the minutes from January 5th. Our next item is the public comment period. I'll ask Mr. Anderson, did we have anyone who pre-registered to speak?
We had no one who expressed interest in speaking during the public comment period.
Okay. Mr. Comney, can I open it if anyone does want to speak, or should we close the public comment period?
Madam Chair, that would be appropriate if you open the floor for additional public comments. I believe we have several individuals in the audience.
Okay, so we can open this time for a public comment period. If anyone would like to speak?
Madam Chair, this is Joe Lurch with Virginia Association of Counties. Thank you for opening up the public comment period. Just two items that we wanted to comment on. Later in your agenda on your General Assembly update, the mandatory property tax exemption study, we just wanted to note that VACO support for that, and also to provide any assistance to the commission and staff in initiating and completing that study. Lastly, we would also like to, on behalf of VACO, express our sympathy and condolences to the loss of Ali Akbar, to the commission and staff. Besides being extremely knowledgeable about public finance and accounting, Ali was ever cheerful and ever helpful to local governments in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lurch. Any other comments from the public? Okay. Thank you again, and I will close the public comment period unless my internet is slow. I don't think we have any other comments. So thank you. So now we're going to turn to our policy administrator's report. Mr. Comney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I would like to again thank everyone, those in the audience attending who have expressed their condolences, members of the commission and staff as well. It's truly a tragic loss, losing Ali. He worked for the commission for over 5 years and was involved in a number of fairly high-profile commission projects and efforts. Obviously, the fiscal stress being the fiscal stress report being the most consistent one of them. Certainly, also the annexation alternatives report and many of the interlocal agreements and annexation cases that have come before the commission during his time serving the commission. In addition to his diligent public service and integrity, Ali was just such a pleasure for the commission and staff and those who got to know him. So again, in honor of Ali's service, we of course have the commending resolution included near the end of your agenda, which we will present to his family. But first and foremost, I would like to entertain a brief moment of silence among all of us so that we can honor Ali's service to the Commission and to the Commonwealth. Thank you again, everyone. We really appreciate it. Next in my policy administrator's report is we have obviously a vacancy on the commission with the expiration of Commissioner Reynolds' term, which ended on December 31st of last year. We have been coordinating with the governor's office and will certainly keep you updated as this matter evolves. But we really don't have any additional updates to share at this point in time. I would also note that this now marks 1 year since the commission met in person. In fact, many of you will recall that the commission was probably one of the last state boards or commissions to meet in person in March of last year. Thankfully, we had the foresight to spread out in the boardroom well before any CDC guidance had been established, and I believe we even had plenty of hand sanitizer available. It's certainly been quite a year, and so we appreciate the patience and grace that everybody has afforded us during this time period, both commission, staff, and many of our stakeholders and partners before us today. Again, DHCD, in light of the pandemic, continues to operate remotely at this time. The earliest that we have been told that we would be returning to the offices is July 1st. However, that is subject to change. That date has been consistently updated as we get new guidance from the governor's office and other state officials on this matter. So we will again keep you apprised of that as that matter evolves. In addition, as far as staff activities are concerned, we of course now have 2 staff vacancies on the commission with Kristen Dahlman's promotion to the policy and legislative director position. And again, with Ali's tragic passing, I would like to specifically call out Cody Anderson and thank him for all of his gracious service and diligence, assisting the commission, assisting the agency in this time of need. Cody, you've done a great job, so thank you very much for that. I would also furthermore like to ask if Kristen Dahlman could share some additional updates on the staff vacancies for the commission.
Good morning, everyone. So just as David mentioned, we now have 2 staff vacancies on the Commission on Local Government right now. So we're working with the administration right now to get those hiring requests expedited and hopefully have a couple new staff members in by the May meeting. So we appreciate your patience. Rest assured, though, we do have plans to continue forward with the work of the commission. But if you all have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or David on the matter.
Thanks, Kristen. In addition to that, I would just add and just highlight some of the news articles that I shared in your packets, some of which I think it's possible could evolve into commission matters. The first being Crozet, which is located in Albemarle County. There was an article about discussions among individuals living in that unincorporated community of Albemarle County discussing the possibility of town status. Staff provided some technical assistance and information to the reporter who put together that fairly in-depth article. Based upon what was shared in the article, most of the reasons behind citizen interest for town status revolve around land use and zoning decisions, in addition to more directly responding to citizen needs for services and facilities. We have not heard anything else on this matter, but certainly something that we would like to just keep on the Commission's radar, and we will certainly update you as that matter evolves. There have certainly also been historically in the past other communities, other unincorporated communities in the Commonwealth that are also interested in town status, such as I believe the the unincorporated community of Massanutten. They have also expressed interest in the past. There was a second article that actually alluded to the Commission's January meeting on the Municipal Utility Data Collection Report, which again, Cody Anderson graciously facilitated on behalf of the Commission. And so just an FYI there. Another article spoke to consolidation of school divisions among the city of Covington and Allegheny County. One important item within that article mentioned the need for the state to provide funding assistance to help make that consolidation happen. And I'll note that there is a budget item in the conference report, item 145.3C, that would provide $1.2 million in fiscal year 2022, and then alludes to an additional $600,000 provided in each of the 3 subsequent fiscal years for purposes of helping ease that transition. Another article that I just thought was rather interesting that kind of speaks to the innovation and creativity among Virginia's localities, profiles the city of Harrisonburg and discussion of outdoor public school classrooms during the pandemic and an effort to reduce the spread of pathogens in the air. I just thought that was rather interesting. And then finally, there was another article that is on a matter that came out of this General Assembly session on moving municipal elections from May to November. This was opposed by VML, who claimed that it injects partisanship into local elections because suddenly you have local elections that are now also infused with state and national level politics. And therefore, it can become difficult for local matters to get the attention that they need. And it's also possible that they argued that there could be additional expenses for running local campaigns in that matter. On that matter, it affects 16 cities and about 100 towns in the Commonwealth. I will note that the bill was signed by the governor. And Madam Chair, that concludes my Policy Administrator's report. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Mr. Comney. Any questions from the other commissioners? Okay, if not, we can move on to item number 2, notice of the city of Martinsville intention to petition for an order granting a town status within Henry County. Mr. Comney, I'm going to turn this over to you for our staff update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on February 17th, Commission staff received a joint letter request from the parties requesting an 84-day extension to the dates outlined in the Commission's adopted review schedule. A copy of that letter was forwarded to members of the Commission and also has been provided in your packets, in your meeting packets as a reference. Mr. Carroll and Mr. Peepgrass are available at this meeting to provide you with some additional context on that matter. I will note that I previously shared with Mr. Carroll and Mr. Peepgrass staff's notes on potential considerations related to that 84-day extension, and also shared with them the recent unfortunate news of Ali's passing and the potential effect that may have in the short term on Commission staff operations. And beyond that, that concludes my staff update, I think, Madam Chair.
Mr. Comney, we can certainly take some comments from the parties. So I'm going to just ask Mr. Carroll and Mr. Peatgrass, would y'all like to add any information?
Dr. Davis, this is Jeremy Carroll. Thank you for the opportunity. First, let me join and express my condolences to for the loss of Mr. Ackmore. I regret that, obviously, that development, and please accept the county's condolences. First, I'd like to just thank you for the extension, the 84-day extension that you've granted the parties. We plan to mediate this matter in late April and certainly hope to be able to report back to the commission successful outcome from that mediation. And with that, we are happy to work with the commission on the schedule that Mr. Conley has laid out. We understand there may be some need to adjust that schedule given the loss of Mr. Ackmore, as that may impact some of the scheduling. But beyond that, there's really not much to report at this juncture other than the parties are moving forward in good faith and look forward to attempting to resolve the disputes between them.
Thank you very much.
And this is Stephen Peepgrass on behalf of the city. We likewise appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all this morning, and appreciate your consideration of the joint request for an extension. On behalf of the city and myself as well, we too wanted to express our sorrow at Mr. Akbar's passing, and certainly understand any accommodations to the schedule that may need to be made as a result. We appreciate Mr. Conmey working with us on putting together that draft with comments on possible additional later dates, and are more than happy to work with you all on finding mutually convenient times. And we are looking forward to that mediation at the end of April, and hopeful about its results. So thank you all, and we'll be glad to work with you on the schedule.
Thank you very much. Mr. Conmey, I'm going to turn this over to you. As you said, you had a table for the commission members for us to look at kind of shifting of the date. So would you mind walking us through that first?
Sure, of course, Madam Chair. So again, this is David Conmey. Cody, would you mind moving to the next slide? Thank you very much. So based upon the 84-day extension request by the parties in their joint letter, staff compiled the following table, which you can now see on your PowerPoint screen, and again, was also provided in the commission packets, which is also available to the public. This information, again, as I mentioned, was shared with Mr. Carroll and Mr. Peepgrass in advance of this meeting, so they could certainly confer and compare with their schedules ahead of time. So what you'll see is under the milestone column, those were all of the remaining essentially activities for the commission during its review of this matter. And the column adjacent to that is the original date by which those matters were scheduled. So certainly, for example, March 5th was when the original deadline for the parties to respond to staff's questions for for additional information, followed by the commission's proceedings, the oral presentations, the public hearing, special closed session meeting, all which would have occurred this week. And then the closing of the commission's record, an additional special commission meeting, followed by a regular commission meeting held in May. The column next to that is essentially if you added 84 days to each of those dates, that's essentially what you would be looking at as far as new deadlines are concerned, if the commission wanted to go that route. I also added the final three columns on the right really speak to just additional matters that the commission may wish to consider. The first being, and these are all kind of considered collectively, certainly one matter that could affect these dates, these 80 plus 84 dates, and maybe also the other dates for consideration is just the outcome of the late April mediation scheduled between the parties. Certainly we wish the parties the best in those discussions and are happy to provide any technical assistance that may be needed. But again, depending upon that outcome, the case itself could actually evolve. There is a means by which other cases come before the commission for review. Those are known as voluntary settlement agreements. And that can be one of several vehicles available to local governments to resolve disputes, including disputes related to reversion. If that's the case, then that could likely necessitate the need for a new notice to be filed to the commission, which would also change the commission's standards for review in this case. Certainly also by extension, new questions may be need to be asked by staff in response to those to the new material. So just want to make sure that the commission, the parties, members of the public are all aware of that matter. And, so again, many of these dates that we've highlighted here are still, fluid. Again, the commission could certainly entertain the idea of just utilizing the 84 date extension, or we could certainly also look at scheduling either through discussion at this meeting, through a doodle poll among commissioners, staff, and the parties on some of these matters. And so staff remains available to assist in any of those options. Certainly would want to measure the temperature of the commission as it relates to this, and also perhaps if Mr. Carroll and Mr. Peatgrass have any additional comments on the dates that have been identified. So if that concludes my presentation on that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. Commission members, Mr. Conley and I talked about this table and kind of some of the options for the commission. There are a lot of options, period. But I wanted to kind of start our discussion and deliberation on recognizing that there has been a request of an 84-day extension, and that the plus 84-day date column may allow, if we were to consider that today, may allow everyone to get their calendars in order, make sure that we're setting aside those dates, continuing to have our meeting May 13th. And at that meeting, we will be able to adjust the calendar as a result of the mediation scheduled for 4/28, 4/29. So I just wanted to start the discussion with, let's go ahead and maybe set some dates and recognize that we'll have our May 13th meeting and those can be changed. So I'd like to open it up for the commissioners.
This is Diane Linderman, Dr. Davis. So the way I read this proposal is that the week of June 14th would be the week we would have all the oral presentations in our meeting. And as far as my calendar goes, that would work. The special meeting that you've shown on the 15th of July, which relates closely to our July 8th meeting, could we just, I assume we could just reschedule our July 8th meeting to the 15th and not have to have a second meeting. That would seem more logical than having two meetings in a row, in a week in a row. So I would, and then the regular, would that be the last meeting we would need? Is that when we would deliberate in just assuming that the mediation isn't successful, I guess, that's the schedule I think we're talking about. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, if I may, and this is David Conmey. Yes, Diane, that is correct. Or Commissioner Linderman, that is correct.
Okay.
And certainly, yeah, moving the July 8th meeting to July 15th, yes, would be the most logical approach. I believe I included August 5th as an additional date. essentially what I want to ensure that the commission and staff have afforded to them is essentially 2 reviews of this matter, just given the significance of this case. I believe this is the largest reversion case that has come before the commission. So this could allow additional deliberation and commission review in closed session at a special meeting to sort of measure the progress of staff's advisory report at the commission's direction on this case. And then again, the August 5th meeting would be a special second commission meeting held for the consideration and adoption of that report. And it doesn't have to be August 5th. It could certainly be another date as well.
Okay. I have one more question, Dr. Davis. With the loss of Ali, does this schedule, are you worried about the schedule, Mr. Comney, or do you feel like you can meet the schedule as it's presented in the 84-day date column?
Thank you, Commissioner Linderman. This is David Conmey. Yes, there is a degree of concern. I was relying upon Ali in particular to provide that expertise as it relates to the review. I think among staff and the collective minds of the commission, it is certainly possible that the case could still proceed within this 84-day extension. I would just, I'm cautiously optimistic about that. It would be great to have additional staff with that public finance expertise. Yeah, it's really kind of I don't think I'm giving you a yes or no answer here. That's just how I feel. Yeah, so thank you.
Any other commission comments? Commissioner Amix?
Those dates are fine by me. I don't see any problem.
Okay. So Mr. Comney, I'm going to get you to help me with this. So I think what we're recommending, what we're going to potentially take action on is adopting the 84-day schedule today. And that's kind of a period. And then our regular July 8th meeting will need to be moved to July 15th. Correct? Help me with this.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, yes, that's correct. And yeah, my notes reflect that. So the regular commission meeting previously scheduled for July 8th would be in lieu of that special meeting, but then a special meeting after July 8th or July 15th, whichever the commission date the commission would like to follow, may be necessary, a second meeting after that.
Okay.
I just want to, from an administrative standpoint, call to attention. Okay, Mike is back on the meeting. Commissioner Amix is back on the meeting. I believe we also might have lost Mr. Peepgrass temporarily. It looks like he's back, and he has raised his hand.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we have a conflict on the 15th of July, but the following week is wide open. The August 5th date is fine as well. So,
Mr. Conley, can we do our July 8th regular meeting and have that also serve as the special commission meeting?
Yes, Madam Chair, that would certainly work, and if that is okay with, and that would accommodate Mr. Peepgrass's schedule.
And unfortunately, the city attorney and I are both out on the 8th. July is difficult because of all long-awaited family vacations that have been put on hold for over a year.
And Mr. Conley, Mr. Peepgrass, this is Jeremy Carroll. Mr. Peepgrass and I conferred yesterday about some of these late June, early July scheduling issues. The June dates, particularly the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th, are all certainly fine for us. But if we could push anything else back, maybe beyond Mr. Peepgrass's July 15 conflict, and Stephen and I didn't talk about this. If we had to move the August 5 date a little bit, I'm sure the parties would be willing to do that as well if we needed to create some room for 2 commission meetings in there.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So, Madam Chair, it seems, if I'm understanding the consensus correctly, then that would likely put the commission meeting the following week, so not July 15th, but instead perhaps July 22nd. And then depending upon the need for a final commission meeting to get another bite at the apple on staff's advisory report, we could coordinate with the parties for any additional extension that may be necessary to accommodate that, certainly within a reasonable amount of time. We're not going to say, we'll wait until September or November. We will certainly try to do that in a reasonable, expedited manner. So I could see a date reasonably around that August 5th date as well. And we can certainly work out the details of that at another time.
And Mr. Comey, this is Jeremy Carroll again. If we're moving that meeting from the 15th to the 22nd, could we move the closing of the commission's record on July 1? Do we have any flexibility with that date to push it back as well? Again, I need to be mindful of Mr. Peepgrass's and Mr. Monday's schedule, but if we could push that date back a little bit as well, that might benefit the parties.
And we were fine with that as well. Jeremy and I talked about that too. Mr.
Comey, I'm going to jump in really kind of quickly. It sounds like we have some level of consensus, for the June dates. Maybe we should go ahead and maybe take a motion on just the June information and then work separately on everything after that. Would that be okay?
Madam Chair, I think that would be fine. I just, as a point of information, as far as the closing of the commission record is concerned, I don't believe, and I would have to double check within the Virginia Administrative Code, I don't believe there's a prescribed period of time by which the commission's record needs to be open. I think traditionally it has been for a 2-week period after the public hearing has been held on this case. If the parties are saying pushing that back, does that mean extending it beyond July 1st or prior to July 1st?
Beyond July 1st.
Okay. So then that would still keep this process within, it certainly wouldn't shorten the scope of the public comment period, which I think would be appropriate. I don't think staff would have any objections to something like that. So I agree with you, Madam Chair, that it seems the June dates have been, there is consensus on those, and the remaining dates we could just kind of fluidly work with the parties, whether at future commission meeting dates or through correspondence.
Okay. So can I entertain a motion from my fellow commissioners?
So this is Diane Lenderman. I move approval of extending the original dates for the oral presentations and public hearing to the week of June 14th. Does that work as a motion?
It does.
Madam Chair, if I may interject, I believe also just if you, the motion may also want to reflect the consensus of staff and the commission coordinating with the parties on the remaining subsequent dates.
Okay, I'll happy to add that we will look to the staff and the parties to coordinate the dates following those meetings as required.
Do I have a second?
Amix.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Amix. So the motion was made by Vice Chair Linderman and seconded by Commissioner Amix. Mr. Comney, roll call.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Amix,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan, again reported as not attending, Commissioner Linderman.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to the parties for working with this as well. And now my papers are all out of order. Wait, hold on. We are going to move to section 3, Mr. Comney. Please tell me I'm correct. Assessment of state and federal mandates on local government.
Yes, Madam Chair, that is correct. And this is something that Mr. Anderson will be presenting to the commission.
Commissioners and public, my name is Cody Anderson. Again, I'm with the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development. Today, I'm going to present the assessment of federal mandates. To begin with, just a little bit of background, the assessment of mandates was established in Executive Order 58 back in 2007. The executive order established policies and procedures by which the executive agencies of the Commonwealth shall critically assess and procedurally reassess all mandates imposed on localities administered by such agencies. The purpose of the mandate assessment process is to determine which mandates, if any, may be altered or eliminated without interruption of local service delivery and without undue threat of health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Virginia. And that's all laid out in the executive order itself. So what I'm presenting today, over the last few weeks, I reached out to a couple or all of the different agencies that had mandates that were up for assessment this coming fiscal year, and got their input on the various mandates that we suggested they assess. What you see in front of you and what you have in your packet are very slightly different. And the only reason that is the Department of Behavioral and Health, they had not gotten back to me yet as of sending out the packet. But that information has been updated, and you'll see in the PowerPoint slide here that one of their 2 mandates we have scheduled for assessment. And the other one we have decided to withhold doing an assessment for. And as you can see in the comments section, it's because the assessment was a mandate on a community service board, and that's not necessarily considered a mandate on a locality per the Attorney General's office. So we're just holding that off. So what you see before you is the schedule of all the assessments that will happen within fiscal year 2022, and we just need the Commission's approval for the schedule as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
So move, Mike Amix.
This is Diane Linderman. I'll second it.
Great, thank you. And I'll ask Mr. Comney to do the roll call, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Amix,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan, again reported as not present, Commissioner Linderman.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Is it just me, or am I not seeing the presentation? I'm still on the Martinsville petition. It may be my computer.
I think it's just you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next item is the fiscal stress report. And Mr. Comney, I will turn this over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, ordinarily this would be something that Ali would update you on. So I'm trying to get very quickly up to speed on the fiscal stress report. So I reached out to the staff at the Auditor of Public Accounts. If you'll recall, during the January commission meeting, Ali had informed members of the commission that there were localities that were delinquent in submitting their annual reports to the Auditor of Public Accounts. Is ordinarily at the January commission meeting is when the commission has traditionally adopted this report. And so several years ago, when this became a chronic issue, the commission adopted an internal policy by which the commission would give a grace period and wait until its July commission meeting to adopt a fiscal stress report. And for any locality that still remained delinquent in submitting its annual report to the APA, we would use the data from that locality's most recently available fiscal year. And so with that being said, for the fiscal 19 fiscal stress report, for which we use FY19 comparative data from the Auditor of Public Accounts, the city of Hopewell is now the only locality that remains delinquent in submitting to the APA. And they're delinquent in submitting their audited financial report in addition to their transmittal data that the APA uses to compile the comparative report. That is, again, one of the primary data sources that staff uses for production of the fiscal stress report. It's not everything, though. There's data that we receive from the Department of Taxation, I believe the Department of Motor Vehicles, and then the U.S. Census. I will note that the APA did receive the City of Petersburg's fiscal year 19 data for their comparative report, and staff, when I spoke with them, had previously sent that data to Ali. I will follow up with the APA staff to get a hold of that so that we can start putting together and assembling the data for this upcoming report. I'll note that the City of Hopewell is now 3 years delinquent in submitting their data to the Auditor of Public Accounts. I already mentioned the standard practice for the commission and the internal policy that's been established. I will also note that in 2019, legislation was enacted that requires any delinquent locality to post a statement on its website declaring that the required audit is pending, the reason for the delay, and the estimated date of completion. This is all outlined in section 15.2-2511 of the Code of Virginia. Based upon the information that I gathered from the City of Hopewell's website, this is what they had to say. The fiscal year 2018 annual financial report is ongoing with an estimated completion date of March 31st of 2021. The fiscal year 2019 annual financial report has an estimated completion date of May 31st, 2021, and the fiscal year 2020 annual financial report has an estimated completion date of September 30th of 2021. They listed 3 reasons for the delay. The first being post-implementation system issues. Based upon my discussions with staff at the Auditor of Public Accounts, it sounds like the City of Hopewell recently, in the last several years, purchased software for producing and analyzing and collecting all of this data. The City of Richmond encountered a similar difficult circumstances in the past that also delayed production of their annual reports. So that is not out of the ordinary. The other 2 reasons that were listed on the website included finance department staff turnover and transition, and of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll continue to monitor the situation and keep you updated as new information is shared with us. Again, the commission has an internal policy for production of the fiscal stress report, even in the event there is delinquent data. It's, I will note that year to year, rankings and scores in the fiscal stress report do not change dramatically. Therefore, it's not an unreasonable internal policy to use data from 1 or 2 previous fiscal years in lieu of the vacant or absent data from that locality. That concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Conley. We're going to move to section 5, 2021 General Assembly Session Update. Mr. Conley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is David Conney. I'll first begin with a discussion of fiscal impact statements. Gosh, it's it can be kind of tough when all of this is sort of an echo of the great work that Ali did for the commission and at the agency. All of these slides were put together by him. All of this information, this entire process was managed by him. But I will just note, I'll try to provide you the information as best I can. So pursuant to section 30-19.03 of the Code of Virginia, the commission staff are directed to investigate and prepare estimates setting forth, to the extent practicable, the additional expenditures or reduction of revenues, if any, that are required by legislation that's introduced during a session of the General Assembly that would affect any city, county, or town. The commission does this through a group of local volunteers, and we're very gracious to have the partnership that we have with VACO, VML, Virginia First Cities, the Virginia Association of Planning District Commissions, several other professional organizations like the Treasurers Association, Commissioners of Revenue Association. They all provide volunteers during the session, and we recruit them every year and refer them bills based upon different categories that they would like to participate in based upon how the bills are assigned in committee. Cody, if you would go to the next slide. So this is kind of a breakdown of the composition of our volunteers for this year. So we had 33 volunteers representing counties, 16 representing cities, 17 representing towns. So essentially an even mix of municipal and county interests. And then I don't know the exact number on the professional and other organizations, but I would venture it's less than 10. Many of them are representatives from PDCs. And so, Cody, if you would move to the next slide. So this is how those volunteers requested to be assigned based upon bill committee assignments. These four categories are certainly not representative of every Senate and House committee. And so there's a little bit more detail to how finance, for example, is broken down into additional bill committee assignments. But you can kind of see that, it's fairly evenly distributed. Certainly the category with the greatest participation is the local government committee. But if you would, again, the next slide. So this slide, I think, is particularly enlightening. There are, again, standards in section 30-19.03 that specify what bills qualify for production of a fiscal impact statement by commission staff. You can see that there were 104 of them that did not qualify. Quite frankly, and no offense to the staff who forward these to us, but there's a lot of systems that just sort of forward bills to us. Many of them oftentimes are charter bill amendments, for example. There's clearly not going to be a fiscal impact on that, and that would be specific to one city or one town, or even one county in some cases. So those don't meet our standards, but there were 18 that did. So there were a total of 18 bills that were referred to staff. I will note that the 104 that are referred to us, that still takes staff time. Ali and I would still confer on whether or not a bill would meet those standards. Sometimes it was a little difficult to make that judgment call, certainly coordinated with Kristen on those as well. But that slide kind of summarizes that circumstance behind this process. Cody, if you would, the next slide. So this is just summarizing the response by each group. Again, a total of 18 bills were referred to the commission for actual production of fiscal impact statements. Looks like the two biggest categories were general laws and local government. And you can see the corresponding response rates, certainly the highest response rate, again, being in the local government category among our volunteers. Cody, if you would, please move to the next slide. So Ali had identified 3 particular bills that were noteworthy for reporting out to the commission. The first one, again, Senate Bill 1157 by Senator Spruill, was a very significant bill, especially of local interest among our partners. Again, this shifts municipal elections from May to November for any city, county, or any city or town council and school board, beginning with elections held after January 1st, 2022. The fiscal impact volunteers noted a total cost, a total potential maximum cost of about $25,000. But I will also note that some other localities noted a cost savings, and that was quite frankly because you're consolidating elections with the November election cycle as opposed to just a separate process in May. This bill again was signed by the governor, and for those localities that are affected, they're now evaluating whether or not to have even year or odd year November elections. Then House Bill 1841 by Delegate Keene started off as requiring, it deals with crosswalk and sidewalk design, requiring new crosswalks and crosswalks receiving future maintenance to be painted in a zebra pattern and having a warning surface tiles on the sidewalk at each end of the crosswalk that are federal yellow if installed on a dark colored sidewalk and red if installed on a light colored sidewalk. There was a significant range in costs in this fiscal impact. The maximum was $2.2 million, but that was for a period of 20 years of projected costs. I will note that this bill evolved so that a stakeholder group was formed, including representatives from VACO and VML, to be assembled and determine whether there should be model policies for crosswalk design in installation in the Commonwealth, and then recommending what those model policies would be. There were some additional guidelines on how that is put together. Finally, Senate Joint Resolution 297 by Senator Bell provides that the General Assembly may, by general law, exempt from taxation the property of a nonprofit organization whose purpose is to provide services to veterans or service members of the armed forces of the United States. The local estimated impact ranged up to $100,000 on this. Many localities noted in their comments that many of these organizations are already tax exempt through other state or local programs, while others were unable to provide an estimate. The joint resolution itself was actually passed by indefinitely in the Senate Finance and Appropriations, and I think that was actually during the regular 2021 session. It was not carried over into the special 2021 session. That concludes my presentation on that. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Great. Okay, Mr. Comney, let's move to bills of interest. Thank you, and Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Mr. Anderson is going to begin with some Senate bills, and then I will just discuss a few House bills.
Hi. So in your packet, you're going to find 10 Senate bills that we thought were particularly of note to the Commission, as well as 10 House bills. In the interest of time, I'm only going to delve a little bit deeper into 5 of the Senate bills and then pass the baton over to my colleague, Mr. Convey. The first one I wanted to go ahead and point out is Senate Bill 1413, which also had the companion bill, HB 2304. This particular bill created a provision of the broadband capacity by phase 1. Sorry, let me rephrase. So there's a provision of the code that created a pilot program for broadband, which allowed phase 1 and phase 2 electric utilities to petition to provide broadband for underserved communities. What this bill ended up doing was expanding the pilot program to allow municipal utilities to partner and provide those broadband services. The next one I wanted to look at was SB 1208. That deals with continuity of government, and as relates to natural disasters or enemy attacks. Obviously, natural disaster is kind of at the forefront right now with the COVID-19 crisis. It's a simple change, but a substantial change nonetheless, and it extends from 6 to 12 months, the length at which, by ordinance, a government, a locality may institute a method to ensure the continuity of their government in the face of such a disaster. HB 1271, or SB 1271, I apologize. If you look at it, it probably starts to sound pretty familiar because David essentially reads what this says at the beginning of every single one of our meetings. And it talks about what needs to occur for a meeting to happen electronically in the state of emergency, essentially. Some of the provisions in there provide that the catastrophic nature of the declared emergency makes it impractical or unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location, as we're currently doing now. It provides that the purpose of the meeting is to provide for the continuity or operation of the public body or to discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It requires that we make arrangements for public access to such meetings through digital electronic communications. So in layman's terms, it really lays out what we already do as a commission, making sure that we have public access, a means for the public to speak, and gives us essentially the authority to meet as we currently are. Senate Bill 1296 was one of Senator Spurrell's bills, and it requires the Virginia Department of Emergency Management to institute an emergency management equity working group, which is very much as it sounds. It essentially establishes a work group to make sure that the support of at-risk individuals and populations disproportionately affected by disasters are taken into account. And then last but not least, Senate Bill 1157, which we've kind of touched on here and there as we've continued through this meeting. And that's talking about the municipal elections all being shifted to November. I think David's done a pretty good job of kind of explaining that as we've gone on throughout this meeting, but that was a very, very significant change in this last General Assembly election, or General Assembly session. Thank you.
And thank you, Cody. I'll just briefly go through some House bills of interest. The first being House Bill 2312 by Delegate Herring, which also had a companion bill in the Senate, Senate Bill 1406 by Senator Evan, and that was the cannabis legalization bill. This was a massive bill, 264 pages long. It was not something that we were necessarily actively monitoring, but kind of following along in the background. Because it does have some implications, both directly and indirectly on local governments. It first, eliminates criminal penalties for possession of cannabis for individuals 21 years of age or older, and then makes several other modifications to some other criminal penalties, and also deals with some record expungement. It creates several new boards and authorities, including one item through this bill is the idea of equity and social equity. And so there was the Cannabis Equity Reinvestment Board and Fund, and then the Virginia Cannabis Equity Business Loan Program and Fund. Essentially, the idea behind this is the war on drugs has had a significant disparate impact upon certain communities, particularly communities of color in the Commonwealth and in this nation. And so the intent is to tip the balance in an equitable and in a manner of equitable justice for many of those communities that were affected through the revenues, the significant revenues that would be collected if this bill is to be enacted. I will note that some items of local interest not only includes the social equity element, but there's a 21% tax rate imposed by the Commonwealth, a local option sales tax rate of 3% in addition to the other local option sales tax. And then there would also be other locally imposed taxes that could also benefit, including meals tax, business licensing taxes. There was significant discussion among local governments regarding local opt-in versus local opt-out and just local authority over these facilities in the Commonwealth. I will say that their local zoning authority is retained to a large degree in this bill, but I know that there was, if I recall correctly, localities would have preferred local opt-in to be the means by which this could be allowed within their jurisdictions, but instead the bill actually is a local opt-out, which basically means a referendum needs to be held in that local government to prohibit the sale and operation of these kinds of businesses within that locality's jurisdiction. It does not, however, prohibit possession within those jurisdictions. That is, of course, awaiting action from the governor's office. And one key sticking point right now is whether or not they will allow legal possession of cannabis effective July 1st of this year, or if they're going to wait for the regulated market to be established in 2024 instead. Many people have made arguments on both sides of that case, so we will see where the governor's office lands on that. House Bill 1778 by Delegate Ward adds additional local policing powers to local governments over nuisances, including, currently they have power over nuisances such as weeds, trash, overgrown lots, but this would add clutter as defined to that power. There's an exception in the bill for land that is active in farming operations or zoned for agricultural farming operations. That was signed by the governor. House Bill 1919 by Delegate Corey authorizes localities by ordinance to establish green banks to promote the investment in clean energy technologies in their localities and provide financing for those technologies as defined in the bill. This was something that was introduced at the request of Fairfax County. Currently, based upon research, there are only 16 local green banks in the United States. So this could be something for which Fairfax County and many of its local peers in Virginia serve as pioneers. And that has not been signed by the governor yet. He has a deadline of March 31st. House Bill 1969, also of particular interest to the commission because and this was introduced by Delegate Carr, currently localities with a fiscal stress score of 107 or higher, as it relates to, I believe it's the fiscal 2016 fiscal stress index. And there's only 3 localities, but they have a power to impose additional taxes upon vacant and blighted buildings within their jurisdiction. The intent is to bring them back into productive use, which would then increase local tax revenue at the local level. Delegate Carr's bill would expand that so that any locality with a score of 100 or higher, as indicated in the fiscal 2017 fiscal stress report, using the amended data, because again, we have that internal policy where we update the report once we have updated data. Any of those localities would be eligible for this. So that significantly expands the number of cities and counties that can use this power. This was a bill that was introduced at the request of Virginia First Cities. During their comments on this matter, they wanted to use this as an additional tool to promote affordable housing within their jurisdictions, while again also putting blighted and derelict property back into productive use. Again, the governor has not acted on this bill. His deadline is March 31st. Finally, there was a bill, House Bill 2091 by Delegate Austin, companion bill of Senate Bill 1267 by Senator Deeds, that amends the City of Covington's charter to acknowledge the consolidation of their 2 school divisions. And that was signed by the governor. And then moving on, I'm sure you're sick of hearing from me, so I'll keep this even briefer. But I also wanted to kind of just briefly talk about the budget. In your packets, we provided the excellent, very thorough and comprehensive budget summaries that VACO and VML produced. There was a lot of activity during this session. Again, the governor's deadline is, of course, March 31st on this matter, with a reconvened session to consider amendments and vetoes, including the budget, on April 7th. Overall, the revenues were higher than expected, despite the pandemic, which I suppose is one of many silver linings during all of this. So a lot of funding was put back into the rainy day funds. Teacher retirement and pension funds were paid down, which leads to a lot of local and state savings. There were a number of highlights. I won't go through them all, but DHCD, the Housing Trust Fund, received additional funding. Virginia Telecommunications Initiative Program received additional funding. There was an accessory dwelling unit study that the commission, or excuse me, the DHCD is directed to produce. Of course, there's also the mandatory property tax exemption study that was also included as a language amendment in the bill. Yeah, so I will actually probably just segue right into that again for the sake of time. But before I do that, I also see in my notes, I want to also note the American Rescue Plan that was signed by President Biden on March 11th, which provides over $350 billion in payments to U.S. territories, states, and local and tribal governments. There's a lot in there, and I believe those above me in the governor's office are still kind of digesting all of that and figuring out exactly how this will work. But I certainly wanted to make members of the commission aware of that, especially just given the state and local fiscal relief that's provided. If you'll recall, the CARES Act really didn't, at least not in a direct way. There are still, of course, strings attached to the funding that's provided, but there's also a greater window of time by which this aid can be used. So this will have provide significant stimulus at the state and local level. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot, and there already is a lot in the news about this matter. So just stay tuned. We'll try to follow along as best we can, but just wanted to make you aware of that. And now that I'm returning from my tangent, I would also just, and Cody, if you would please advance the slide. I believe I have the budget language on one more slide, please. Yes, thank you. So there's study language. Again, this was provided in your packets and can be seen on this slide. I will note, again, this is in the conference report budget, so it's not been signed by the governor, so it's not effective. Nevertheless, just given the possibility of its enactment, staff would like to make you apprised of this matter and get your general observations and suggestions for moving forward if this study is enacted in the budget. Again, originally, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but originally this was going to be something that Ali and I were going to co-lead. And so we are, again, Cody has stepped up. So thank you, Cody, again. And thank you, Kristen, for your assistance here as well. And thank you also to our partners at VACO and VML who've been very understanding with this and have offered a lot of assistance. Staff met with representatives from VACO and VML earlier this week to talk about the study and get a little bit of direction, because the scope of this could otherwise be significant. We did some preliminary research where we reached out to the Department of Taxation, and they provided me with a list of tax exemptions that is 31 pages long, which would be substantial. But the scope is actually narrowed quite a bit based upon that input, and it's really related to entitlements and constitutional amendments, namely those that are constitutional amendments granting local real estate property tax exemptions for veterans, surviving spouses of veterans, spouses of soldiers who have been killed in action. There are additional provisions that speak to whether or not those exemptions can be applied if the surviving spouse moves to a different location within Virginia. Certainly, there are some localities in the Commonwealth that are going to be more disproportionately affected by this than others. The city of Hampton, for example, back when the mandates task force was assembled, we had a representative from the city of Hampton. His name is escaping me at the moment, but I remember distinctly him saying during one of the meetings how those exemptions were essentially killing them from a fiscal standpoint. And so VACO, VML, other local stakeholders have put in this request that the commission will be assembling and producing with a due date of November 1st of 2021. What staff would suggest as it relates to this study, and for which we would like to measure the temperature of the commission, is we suggest convening a small group of stakeholders to help direct the study, kind of similar to how the annexation alternative study was conducted, just on a smaller, shorter, abbreviated scale. We would hold a few meetings over the duration of the study to confer on the study approach, evaluate data that has been collected, and discuss the recommendations that are also requested of the commission in the study. Ideally, it would be useful to have a commissioner serve as a point person to ensure that the commission is well represented and well informed on the progress of this study going forward, in addition to reports from staff. So I think that summarizes everything. I don't know if members of VACO and VML wanted to provide some additional input, Madam Chair, but if you would like to hear from them as well, that might be appropriate here.
Sure, absolutely. So if VACO or VML would like to add anything to the discussion?
Madam Chair, Joe Lurch with VACO. No, I think David did a great job, summarizing it. It is an ongoing issue that with these constitutional amendments, past ones, and moving forward. And while I think the policy decision to ameliorate some of the fiscal impacts on the individuals is laudable, sometimes these get disproportionately borne out in local fiscal implications. Some ideas and thoughts, could be, moving forward, rather than just exempt them directly, maybe look at some sort of state tax credit. So in other words, these are paid locally, but the state in making that policy decision. So those are some of the concepts and thoughts moving forward. And we definitely would, welcome the idea of the stakeholder group and would serve on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is Michelle Gowdy from VML, and I'll just echo their comments too. We look forward to working on the study group, and thank you for considering the issues.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I would just add, again, this hasn't been enacted yet, so it's not effective. But again, I think we're just trying to measure the commission's temperature on this, and perhaps even identify a point person among the commissioners who would like to serve as kind of a chair or lead of this study to work with staff. Again, I'm not expecting a significant obligation, probably 2 or 3 meetings during the course of the year.
So I will open that up to our commissioners. If you all have an interest in serving, if not, that's okay. I do have an interest in serving because of our connection with local governments, but I didn't want to usurp that conversation.
Dr. Davis, this is Diane Linderman. I am happy with you being our point person, and look forward to hearing more.
Great. Commissioner Amix.
I concur. Thanks for doing it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Great. Okay, Mr. Comney, if that's it, can we move to the next item on our agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. I just will note for VACO, VML, Commission staff, and Commissioner Davis, we'll be in touch with scheduling some kickoff dates just to start approaching this. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next item on our agenda is the commending resolution for Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Comney, would we like to read the resolution, or would we like to just consider the resolution? You kind of guide us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think so. We're at 12, almost 12:30 now. These are some of the last items in the agenda. I will just note this is kind of a standard process. We certainly first want to solicit the commissioner's input on the content of the resolution, which again was included in your packets, honoring Mr. Reynolds for serving on the commission for 5 years. These are fairly standard. We try to highlight a lot of different things that they've done. And I'm just now realizing too that this, I've put Cody as point person on this. Cody, I've usurped your talking point. So I'm turning this one over to you.
It's no big deal at all. Yeah, so this is, again, like David said, it's pretty standard. How the commission wants to go about this is kind of the commission's prerogative. I can read it out loud if you guys would like. In terms of actually getting the resolution signed, we can go about it any number of ways. We can do it electronically, do electronic signatures. I can mail it to you guys if you want to put ink signatures on it. I can have it framed and mailed. We can choose at a later date to all congregate when it's safe to do so and invite prior Commissioner Reynolds to physically accept the award. So it's very much the commission's prerogative as to how you would like to handle it.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Do I have any discussion from the commissioners? What would you all like to do?
So this is Diane Linderman. I'm just pleased with the resolution as it is. I just think having ink signatures it just feels better to me than trying to digitally sign it. My digital signature is only so good looking. So I would suggest taking the time of moving it around. I mean, being here in Richmond, maybe Mike and I could meet somebody somewhere outside and with a pen and be able to add our signatures to it. And then it could be sent to Dr. Davis and to our other commissioner, and then send it, framed to Mr. Kimball Reynolds. That would be my recommendation.
And I will note, members of the commission, this is David Conley. I will note that there is precedent for that. In the past, we have had to kind of gather signatures through snail mail. And certainly there is also precedent for mailing the framed resolution to whomever we are honoring. We try to invite them to a commission meeting, but because the commission is not meeting physically for the indefinitely, that may make the most sense here.
Mr. Comney, I'd like to ask one thing. Even if we do get the signatures and mail the resolution, can we still do a virtual presentation at one of our meetings?
Absolutely.
What's the plan to do that?
Yeah, I agree.
And it takes some time to get these framed. So we'll certainly, be able to coordinate schedules and get invite Commissioner Reynolds to a future commission meeting virtually, or, if we're lucky, maybe in person. But so stay tuned on that one.
Okay, great. So can I have a motion? Oh, Cody, I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson.
No, it's okay. Yeah, if it pleases the commission, what I can do is I can take a finalized version of it, like send 3 copies to Chairwoman Davis, and have you get a signature on it, and then send those same 3 copies to Ms. Mahan, just so that we have a couple of different options in terms of, coffee will get spilled on it. We end up with several people's lunches on them, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll just send those copies around, and then I'll put my head together with Commissioner Linderman and Commissioner Amix, whether or not I want to mail those, or I can certainly meet them in town somewhere and get that taken care of, and get it all framed up and ready to go. And then perhaps invite Commissioner Reynolds to a digital presentation of it and then mail it to him. Is that something that the commission would be susceptible to?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Other commissioners?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
So do we need a motion then to approve the resolution? So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Comney, I'll get you to do the roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Amix,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan, again marked as not present. Commissioner Linderman.
Approve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is our commending resolution for Ali. And Mr. Comney, I am going to ask you to read this resolution because we have time. And I think if we could handle this resolution in a similar manner, get original signatures on this, have it framed, and if we can possibly present it to Ali's family, that would be wonderful. If not, we'll do a virtual presentation. But for our purposes, I would like for staff to read the resolution.
Absolutely, Madam Chair, it would be my pleasure. And the text of the resolution is also on the screen for those of you in attendance. And I will note that this was shared with you all on Monday in an email. So at a regular meeting of the Commission on Local Government held virtually on Thursday, March 25th, 2021 at the hour of 11 a.m., the following resolution was unanimously adopted. Whereas Ali Akbar served the Commission on Local Government with distinction for over 5 years from January 4th, 2016 until his tragic passing on March 17th, 2021. And whereas during his time with the Commission, he worked with 8 commissioners and assisted the Commission with its reports on the Covington-Allegheny Economic Growth Sharing Agreement, the Caruso-Odin LLC Town of Culpeper, County of Culpeper, Citizen-Initiated Annexation Action, the ongoing review of the City of Martinsville petition for an order granting it town status within Henry County, and numerous other reports and studies. And whereas his research into the fiscal conditions of local governments was essential in the development of the Commission's annual report on comparative revenue capacity, revenue effort, and fiscal stress of Virginia's cities and counties, the development of a fiscal distress monitoring system in coordination with the Virginia Auditor of Public Accounts, the Commission's report on annexation alternatives, and most recently, the development of the local vulnerability analysis in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, for which his work has received national and international recognition. And whereas he was instrumental in facilitating and managing a group of local volunteers for purposes of advising state policymakers on the fiscal impact of legislative proposals on local governments during 6 regular general sessions and 1 special session of the Virginia General Assembly. And whereas he received numerous awards while working at the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, including Employee of the Month and Special Project Awards for the website redesign team and the report on annexation alternatives. And whereas his dedication, industry, character, integrity, faith, and honor served as a model for those engaged in public service. And whereas His knowledge, professionalism, and commitment have earned him the respect and admiration of all the members of this commission, state and local officials throughout Virginia, and others who have had the good fortune of his association. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Commission on Local Government does hereby posthumously express its gratitude to Ali Akbar and his family for his many contributions to this body and for his enhancements of the professional and personal lives of all who have been associated with him. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this meeting, and that the resolution be presented to his wife, Farjana Rahman, daughter Zanatul Shala, son Shabib Akbar, and son Nihan Akbar, as a permanent testament of our affection, esteem, and high regard.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. It's perfect. Can any comments from our commissioners? Maybe a motion to approve?
I do agree that it's perfect. Thank you to David and to the staff for pulling it together so quickly, getting it on our agenda. It's obviously it's unfortunate, and you guys have been, I'm sure, dealing with the grief for losing your fellow colleague, and that can't be easy. So thank you, guys. I'm happy to approve a motion, to make a motion to approve the resolution. I'm also happy to volunteer. So I'll do that first. So there's a motion. I'm happy, David and Cody, to volunteer to present it to his family if that makes sense, being local and as a representation of the commission members.
Thank you.
Mike Amick, second the motion.
Okay, I'll first take the roll call and also just acknowledge, thank you, Commissioner Linderman, on that offer. I think that would be very well received. So Commissioner Amix.
Aye.
Commissioner Davis.
Approve. Aye.
Commissioner Mahan, again, reported as not present, and Commissioner Linderman.
Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. So we are almost at the end of our agenda. So Mr. Anderson, schedule of regular meetings.
As you can see on the screen, the regular meetings set forth Thursday, May 13th, Thursday, July 8th, Thursday, September 9th, Thursday, November 4th, all will take place at 11 a.m.
Madam Chair, if I just might also add, if I recall correctly, I know we've discussed a lot. I think that July 8th meeting, that was going to change. If I recall correctly, that'll now be 2 weeks later, July 22nd.
Potentially.
Potentially, right, that's right.
Yep. But we definitely have our May 13th meeting. Excellent. And then anything else on that, Mr. Anderson?
No, not on that particular item.
And then events of interest.
So normally we do have events of interest. However, this time we don't. So I will open the floor for VML or VACO or any association in the audience who would like to self-plug and give any sort of event they have going on. Otherwise, I don't really have anything to present on this particular item.
Michelle, Joe.
Yeah, this is Joe Lurch. I can't think of anything right offhand. I mean, we are planning on our annual conference to be in person at the Maine in Norfolk in November. We also are going to have our summit this year, as well as doing regional meetings that we do on an annual basis. Of course, the regional meetings will be, a lot of those will just be done electronically.
Yeah, and this is Michelle Gowdy. I'll say for VML, we're going to do a webinar on the legislative update, which is similar to what you've just heard in April after the reconvened session. And our conference is in October in Loudon. We expect it'll be in person, but we're not sure yet. So thanks for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Comney, do we need to do a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Madam Chair, for the record, we would.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved. This is
Second.
Diane Linderman.
Thank
Second.
you. Perfect. And we'll do a roll call.
All right, Commissioner Amix,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan, who we again have marked as not present, and Commissioner Linderman.
Aye.
All right.
Perfect. So we are adjourned. David and staff, thank you very much. This was a heavy lift today, and you made it very easy, especially given everything you all are dealing with. So thank you very much. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Have a good week, everyone.
Yep.
All right.